Good morning, I'm Aparna Ramaswamy and welcome to another narration of the Panchatantra. Today we have a couple of stories that are kind of interwoven. One is the twin parrots, the second one is three friends and the noble robber. In the first story, the jackal says, just like two parrots who are reared differently grow up to be different. These two parrots were separated at birth. One went and lived in the house of a sage and learned virtuous and good things to say, whereas the other parrot goes and lives in the house of a thief and learns to say nothing but horrible, deceitful things. Just like that, the two jackals who are quarreling and fighting about whether there should have been discord between the lion king and the bull, one of the jackals says, I'd rather have a noble enemy than have friends who are deceitful. Just as in the story of the three friends and the noble robber. Once upon a time, there were three friends who were very poor, and they decided to go into a forest that they believed had a lot of precious gems in it. They went scavenging and went on a treasure hunt, and finally each of them found a huge piece of precious stone. There was another thief, a robber, who was looking at them. He had been searching for the very same treasures for a long time, but had not found anything. So he decides to follow these three friends and finally rob them. These friends were clever though. They figured out that there might be thieves in the jungle who might try to steal the gems from them. So they decided to just swallow it so it would be in their bellies till the next morning, and then they could get it out once they returned home. Now that night, as they camped in the forest, this robber goes up to them and says, well, I'm all alone, I'm a little scared, can I join your group? And these three friends, of course, let him in and they stay together. Now, while these four are sleeping that night, there is a thief, a band of thieves in that jungle who capture these four people because there was a crow, a magic crow that kept calling out that these three fellows have gems inside the body. And the chief believes this crow because it's never lied. So he captures them, he searches them all over, can't find the gem, and finally figures out it must be inside their body. Now the robber says, now these three people were good people. They let me join them. Now in return for them, I want to do a noble deed. And maybe that way, in spite of all the sins I've committed, I will have a good destiny. So he offers himself first to the chieftain and says, cut open my belly to see if there is any gem, knowing fully well there is no gem there. The chief, of course, immediately listens to him, opens up his belly and sees that there are no gems there. So he says, this crow must be wrong, and sets the other three men free. So the jackal says, just as in that story, it's so much better to have at least a noble enemy than have deceitful friends and ministers like you. Now, while these two jackals are arguing back and forth, the lion and the bull have met each other. They have sized each other up. There is distrust, and they start fighting. And the fight is not going very well. The jackal is so angry and so upset, he tells his other person, you are like the foolish monkey who was trying to protect his king. You have behaved with absolutely no thought. And the jackal says, okay, what is that story now? Please join us in next week for another narration of the Panchatantra.